Good day, and thank you very much for tuning in to our recording. My name is Prashina, and I'm joined by my colleague Calvin. We are customer success managers here at Time Doctor. If you tuned in yesterday into our live webinar session, you're well aware that unfortunately we ran into some technical difficulties. And thus, we decided to send you the entire recording of the webinar, demos included. So I'm thrilled to welcome you to our webinar. Is my team really working? We're going to be using Time Doctor to find out exactly how you can figure out if your team is actually working. As businesses are adapting into a remote and hybrid setting, measuring your team's productivity has become more important than ever. So, by utilizing the insights Time Doctor gives us, we're going to be able to address the team's productivity, look at our challenges that we're experiencing, and of course, at the end of the day, increase their overall well being and performance. This can all be done without micromanaging your team. That's correct. We are not going to be micromanaging our team anymore. Now, let's jump into exactly what we have in store for you today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Prashina. So the agenda is quite simple. We're going to talk about are my staff members really working, which is the purpose and the title of the webinar. But how do we figure that out? So we're going to look at, are they working the correct number of hours? Is their attendance being tracked correctly? Are the shifts being respected? Or maybe we're even going to investigate and show you ways of how you can determine whether your employees are actually pretending to work. Like Prashina said, we a lot of our customers work in a remote environment, so it's becoming increasingly important to understand how our team are working and whether they're just pretending to work. And then lastly, we're going to touch on some best practices beyond using Time Doctor that you can use and you can adapt to figure those things out. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right into topic number one so that we can get started with this demo. So I'm going to be talking about are my staff members working the correct number of hours? Now, it's important when you run a business, obviously, to make sure that your staff are working the correct number of hours. Okay. You need to also make sure that they're not working too many hours because that can lead to burnout. So, Time Doctor's hours track report comes into play here. And this report shows how many hours each user tracked per day or per week or per month or even for any selected date range. Now, we're going to have a look at this. I'm also going to show you how, besides just looking at the report and going to the report every day, I'm also going to look at how you can kind of automate this for yourself so you don't have to spend the hours going and looking at reports and trying to figure out the data. You can let the data come to you, right? So that's what I'm going to do in this live demo. So I'm going to dive right into our dashboard so I can show you exactly what you can do. So we will start with the hours track report, as I mentioned, and it's quite simple to find. All you need to do is click on reports and go down to hours tracked, and it will populate this report. You can select it for a particular group or the entire company if you wish, or even a number of groups depending on what you want to look at. So at a glance, what you will see in front of you is a screen that has some different colors. So right at the top, you'll see the legend that tells you exactly what each of these colors means. So you'll be able to understand what you're looking at. It also gives you the total number of users that you're looking at for that period. And the periods that you look at are in the top right hand section. So you can look at it from a day view, a week view, or a month view, as I am currently looking at. If you want to look at a date range, for example, maybe you want to look over a quarter or over a half a year or whatever period you want to look at, even if it's 14 days, 2 weeks, or whatever it is, you can select that. Okay. Now, what you can do with this report, if you want to look a bit deeper, is you can actually click into someone's name. So I'll select my own name, and you can see per day how the hours have been worked and what time was tracked or where it was tracked to. Okay, so that's when you're looking at it from a month's perspective. Now, it's all good and well knowing where this report is and understanding how to look at it, but it could be tedious for managers, especially, to want to come in every single day, go to the report, look at the report, then maybe you need to export it. It can become tedious. So what you can do to solve that is you'll see in the top right hand corner, if you click on your name and click on my account, it will take you to your account settings page, your personal account settings page. And what you'll see at the bottom is a toggle button that says receive daily hours tracked email report. So if you are not receiving a daily hours track email report, please come and check here and make sure that it is toggled on. And then you will start to receive the report every morning in your inbox for the hours that were tracked the day before. Okay, but another way that you can sort of automate this and look at it from a different perspective is by clicking on settings and going to email notifications and setting up email alerts for yourself. Okay, so there's a couple of ways you can do it. For the hours track, for the purpose of the hours track, we will be looking at daily. Sorry, yes, at daily and at weekly. So with daily, you have the option of selecting a parameter of hours tracked. Okay, so you can click on daily hours tracked, and you can change the operator to either say greater than or lower than. So this way you can monitor to make sure that your users are not working more than a certain amount of hours per day. Let's say you want to make sure they're not working more than 9 hours per day. You can set as greater than, or you want to make sure they may be not working less than 6 hours per day, for example. Then you can click the lower than. Make sure you set the values in. Choose the days that are applicable. And what you can do now is you can also, because remember, managers will not be able to create email notifications. In this case, an admin will, but the admins can then add their managers in as recipients so that the manager will receive that report, and you can choose the specific groups that you want that report to. Under weekly, what will happen under weekly is it's quite simple. If you click on weekly, there is only one parameter that you can look at, and that is weekly hours tracked. But you can change the operator once again to greater than or lower than. So again, you can track to make sure the stipulated amount of hours per week are being tracked and being worked. This report will be available to you on a Monday morning for the previous week. So it will give you an opportunity to dive into that data on a Monday in an email format, and you can look through. And if there's anything that stands out, you can then go and investigate the reports in the dashboard a bit closer. All right. So that's how you can sort of simplify it for you, automate it for you, make it a lot easier to understand the data, and make sure that your staff are really working by ensuring that the correct number of hours are being adhered to. Right. So that's it for me for this part. I'm going to hand it back to Prashina, who will take us through the next section.
Thank you very much, Calvin. So, our next section, we're going to be looking at the topic of attendance. Now, this is a big topic because, as you are aware, organizations are struggling to keep track or look at or have the visibility rather, of how users are adhering to their work schedule. So, this is becoming more and more difficult as we go along. But by having that visibility, what you can actually end up doing is receive positive results in terms of assigning the correct task to a user in case you have deadlines that you're adhering to, or alternatively, even address productivity issues from the get go. So, what we're going to be talking about is Time Doctor's work schedule. So, Time Doctor's work schedule allows you to be able to add in your user schedule, manage their shifts, and as well as monitor these particular schedules. So, this is a fantastic feature which can be consistently edited by you. So, if you have different shifts for your users, this can always be updated. All right, so now that we've covered this important bit of how exactly we can now add the shifts for our users, we're now going to look at our next section, which will be how exactly will we be monitoring this. So we're going to be speaking about Time Doctor's attendance report. So within the attendance report, this will allow you to get a clear view of how exactly is your team adhering to their work schedule. Who's showing up on time? Who's late? Or who missed the boat whatsoever? So, by being able to identify this or have the visibility of how the users are adhering to their actual work shift itself, you'll be able to quickly identify patterns and, of course, address any common challenges that will be expected in case a user has not shown up for their shift. Now, let's jump into a live demo of how exactly you can go about utilizing this for your team. Firstly, let me stress that admins and owners automatically have the access to work schedules, but for a manager, if you would like to input in work schedules for your own team, you're simply going to request your admin to enable these particular permissions on the company settings page of Time Doctor under the permissions section. Once this feature is enabled, a manager will then be able to add work schedules for their own team. Now that we can access this particular feature, let's go to our work schedules. Work schedules is found in your settings tab, which is the second last on the list. Once you've selected it, you will be presented with the window as depicted in the front. Everything is blank. Excuse me, everything is blank. And that simply means that you have not input in any work schedules for your team as yet. So let's see how exactly we can go about adding work schedules for our team. You're simply going to go and firstly select the users that you'd like to add a schedule in. So in case you have multiple teams assigned to you, you will choose the correct group. Then you will click on Add or Edit Work Schedules. Once you select this, a new window appears. The first part of the window actually instructs you to select a particular date range in which you're going to populate for the work schedule itself. So it's as simple as selecting the drop down and two clicks. The first click is for your start date, the second click is for your end date. Once you've selected the period, you can then, of course, if your team works on weekends, you will enable this feature. Alternatively, if your team does not work on weekends, you'll simply leave it as disabled, and then you will download a CSV file. Once you've downloaded your CSV file, it should be present as such. So the first four columns are in relation to your user, and this information is necessary in order for us to synchronize the work schedules with this particular user. So please do not edit anything on the first four columns. However, from column 5 onwards, you will see the first date that you've input in order to populate the user's work schedule. You can, of course, manipulate these dates. You can remove a date or you can even add a date. Now, when we get to the work schedule format itself, we're going to go back onto the platform. And on the right of this window, there is a specific part here where we give you guidelines in terms of how to input this particular format. So I'm simply going to click on View More, and this panel opens up. The first example is 0900 1700. This represents 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The second example that we have is 0900 1700, and then we've got another dash 7:15. This simply means that the shift starts at 9, it ends at 5, but there is a minimum expected hour of 7 hours, I beg your pardon, and 15 minutes. So the user has to track at least 7 hours and 15 minutes. If your user has multiple shifts, you can reference the formats below, which give you a clear guideline into multiple shifts, shifts on the same day, as well as minimum expected hours. So, dependent on how exactly your team adheres or their schedule is set up, you will set up the schedule exactly the same. Once you're done populating your CSV format, you're simply going to come back to the page and you're going to upload the CSV. Once you've uploaded the CSV, the particular CSV as well as the schedules will be synchronized, and this will be evident on the schedules page. So I've recently added these schedules for these particular users. And as you can see, the first user is from 11 to 8, the second user is from 7 p.m. to 4 a.m., followed by 3 a.m. to 12 p.m. So different shifts between the team. If you'd like, you can also edit the shift by selecting the pen feature that we have on the shift itself, and then you can manipulate the shift according to how you'd like to change it. Once you're done, you'll simply click on Save. Another great feature that we have is the leave feature. So, paid leave feature or not paid leave feature, which you can also input on your schedules page. So, to remove a shift, you'll simply click on the little dustbin. To add your leave, you're simply going to click on the plus. So once you click on the plus, the two options should be given as to either you would like to add a shift or alternatively you'd like to declare that that user was on leave at that day. Right, now this is our leave schedule feature. We've already added in our shifts for our users. Now it's time to look at how exactly the team is adhering to this particular schedule. So, we are going to be referencing the attendance report. The attendance report is available in your reports tab. Within the attendance report, you have the options of either to toggle on a particular user or look at an entire department that is assigned to your profile. You can also export this information that you see in front of you, especially if you're looking for patterns, as we've previously stated, to be able to highlight any inconsistencies and assist our users. Just adjacent to that, you have your time zone. And then at the very end on the right, you have the different periods in which you can analyze this data, starting with today, this week, this month, or a particular date range, such as maybe a quarterly review that you'd like to look at. Within the page itself, you can also highlight those users who only have shifts. So, in a team, if you have any users that do not have a particular work schedule, obviously you're going to leave that blank. But for those teammates that do have work schedules input in for them, there's a shortcut for you to be able to highlight it. Adjacent to that, you also have the labels that will be assigned according to how a user is adhering to their shift. You can also select this in order to highlight any outliers so that you can take action immediately. Within the actual report, firstly you will be able to observe the date followed by the status, and this is where you'll find the appropriate label of how the user has adhered to their shift on that particular day. So, as you can see, the user was on leave for the first 3 days, then they were present. We also have them late for 16 minutes, next, again, late for 1 hour and 2 minutes, and last but not least, they did not pitch up for the shift at all. The next column is the shift start time, which reflects the shift that you have input in for the user, followed by what time did the user actually end up starting. Then we have the shift length, the expected hours, then the actual hours that were tracked. And this is a great comparison to do, especially if you've put in minimum expected hours to be able to reflect on how much of time did they actually end up tracking. This is followed by the day start time as well as the day end time. Next, how do we go about actually making this less manually invasive, meaning removing the micromanagement factor out of this equation? Well, I'm glad you asked. We're simply going to go to our email notifications. So, under our email notifications, as Calvin has already explained, which sits in our settings tab, there are two different types which I am mainly going to highlight. The first will be the daily email notification, where if we can configure the condition itself, I will highly recommend the condition of start time to alert you of any user that starts their day way after what would be considered applicable for you. Or alternatively, someone that did not follow their schedule. So, of course, this will be sent to you in your morning the next day. So, you will be alerted of anyone that did not adhere to their work schedule the previous day. However, if you have a run in business where you have deadlines that you have to adhere to, and it's very important that all of your team are online and available to assist or complete their tasks, I highly recommend that we do a real time email notification. As once the users meet this condition, immediately an email will be sent out to you. So the two conditions that I can highlight here is if a user didn't start working. So once again, at a particular period where you consider to be applicable, or the last point that a user can start working, you will simply set a configure as such. Or alternatively, the other one that I can recommend is if a user did not start their shift yet. So they're not adhering to their work schedule at all. Now, this will allow us to quickly rearrange our gears, look at another user who's online who can do those tasks, and of course, mitigate the issue of us missing our deadline. But overall, utilizing these two features, we now have visibility to be able to see how exactly is our team adhering to these schedules that we have now created for them and they have committed to. That's all from me for now. I'm going to hand over to Calvin to take us through our next section.
Awesome, fantastic. Thank you, Prashina. So I'm going to be moving forward with how we can know if our employees are pretending to work or not. As I mentioned in the beginning, a lot of our clients, a lot of our customers work on a either a hybrid setup or a fully remote setup. So it is imperative for them to understand if the employees are truly working or pretending to work. We know that in the world of remote work, there's always people that try to cheat the system, and there's ways that Time Doctor has come up with to help you understand if that is happening or not. There's two reports I'm going to look at in the next section. One is our activity summary report, and the other one is our unusual activity report. Now, the first one, the activity summary report, indicates the activity engagement of a user, so how productive they are, how idle they are, what exactly they're doing, what their day to day looks like. And the second report, the unusual activity report, indicates any user that is exhibiting non human like behavior, so peculiar behavior. So I'll be diving into that in this live demo to show you those two reports and how you can apply them in figuring out if your employees are pretending to work. So let's go and take a look. So as mentioned, the first place that we're going to start in is the activity summary report. Okay, so you will find this again under the reports tab. You just click on activity summary and then it will load for the particular group or company or whatever you're looking at. Again, you can view this from a daily, weekly, monthly, or as well as a date range, as with all our reports. What you'll quickly notice is it will show you the total time tracked. Then you'll see the next tab says activity level. Now this is the default or the prescribed average activity level that is determined or that should be what's normal on a particular website or application that your users are using. So as you can see, it says medium there for most of the users. This is looking at it from a month's perspective. So obviously it takes the average activity level for the month. Next to that, you'll see the idle minute percentage. Then you'll see the actual idle minutes in hours and minutes. And then you've got a few other things like your unproductive websites and apps and break time, etc. Those things can be added. If you click on columns, you'll be able to adjust what this page looks like for you. Okay. Now, if we dive in to a particular user, this is where you'll see the activity level a little bit more, and you will actually see websites and apps for the month, how much time was spent, where the time was tracked to, and as you scroll down, you will start to see the activity level shows in different things. So we've got very low, low, medium, very medium, high, and then very high. So you can then just have a look and see it's almost like a benchmarking feature or benchmarking stipulation where you can compare people in the same roles and understand uh, what their prescribed activity level would normally be for that particular person. Okay. It will also show you the idle minutes and the websites and applications where that user was idle, and again, how much time was spent uh, on those websites and applications when they were idle. You can also look at it from a projects and tasks view. It will give you that in percentage as well. And if you toggle along, you can see the percentage of unproductive websites and apps. So if there was any, they will show a percentage there, as well as if you are tracking break time, it will show the percentage of break time that has been taken for that particular period. So the nice thing about this report is it goes hand in hand with your productivity ratings. So as you rate websites and applications, it will then start to balance out your activity summary, and this is where you can gauge if your users are being productive and where their time is going from an activity perspective. All right. So that's your activity summary report. If we look at we'll look at how you can manage this from email notification setting in a second, but I want to dive to the next report, which obviously is your unusual activity report. As I mentioned, again, you can look at it for whatever team you have, monthly, weekly, or a particular date range. It will populate only the users that have been perceived to have unusual activity. Okay, so it won't give you your whole team because there's no need for that. It just gives you the users that have been flagged for possible unusual activity. Again, if you click on a particular user's name, you can then go into the types of unusual activity. Again, the percentage of unusual activity time. We track unusual activity in 30-minute chunks. Now, we did have a webinar last month that spoke directly into this, so I won't go into the detail of that, but you can come in and you can have a look at the number of mouse clicks, what it's relative to, what the percentage is, what the timestamps were. Okay, so you can see the timestamps here for particular days. You can click into that, and if you have activated your screencast, you will be able to go to that particular time chunk or that particular timestamp and investigate a little bit deeper. Okay, so this is if you find someone who seems to populate this report more often than not, and you want to investigate that to check if they are really working. There are some other mitigating factors, gaming mouses, depends on the role, and those kind of things. So I encourage you to understand that first, understand the role of the user, understand the work that they're doing. Use your screencast to have a greater understanding before making any decisions with regards to that. Okay, so with that being said, you can also automate this or simplify this for yourself by going back to email notifications, as we've been talking about already today. With the activity summary report, you would need to focus on a daily notification, a daily email notification. And what you'll see here is if you go down to the conditions, you could probably select whether you want to manage unproductive time per day, productive percentage, idle minute percentage, and that's where you're obviously monitoring your productivity. So you can set that again, same thing, daily, set up who you want it to be sent to, and then you receive that notification the next day. And you can also track unusual keyboard and mouse activity. All right, so you will be given this if there's any unusual keyboard and mouse activity. You can set the value if you want it to be 30 minutes or more than an hour, whatever it is. If someone gets flagged by that, the notification will be created and you will receive that the next day. And then you can then go in and do your investigations as I mentioned before. So again, that is how we are doing our bit to try and simplify and streamline the process of being a manager with Time Doctor and ensuring are my staff, first of all, really working? And then secondly, with these particular reports, you will be able to see are they really working or are they pretending to work during the time that they are supposed to be. So hopefully that helps and helps you to understand the way you can manage that a little bit more. So that's it from me for now. I'm going to hand back to Prashina, who will give you what's coming next.
Thank you very much, Calvin. Our next section, we're going to be addressing some best practices. Now, this is all keeping very close to our main topic: is my team really working? So, our best practices include insights from Time Doctor as well as insights outside Time Doctor. The very first one that I'd like to highlight is, of course, the email notifications. Now, the email notifications, as we've discussed at length today, is a fantastic feature, and this mitigates the step of you actually logging into Time Doctor's web application. So, once you set up your email notification, you will receive that in your inbox. And of course, this would be conditions that you hold very dear. So you can take the appropriate action there afterwards. The second highlight that I'd like to give, or recommendation rather, is to utilize screencasts and the activity level. Now, Screencast is a feature on Time Doctor which simply takes out a picture of the active window that your user is working on. This is to the same concept of lazy work. You could very easily discover how exactly the user is working on the particular tool that they're utilizing by viewing exactly what they're doing on their screen. But in addition to that, we've also got the activity level. Now, the activity level speaks about how active a user is. Of course, as Calvin has already mentioned, our job roles are very specific when we are looking at these insights. So, of course, for some people, you should operate at a very high activity level. Alternatively, for some job roles, such as Calvin and myself, where we are presenting, there is less activity to be noted. There's also a benchmarking feature that is associated with the activity level, which lets you know how is your team operating on the tools that you've deployed in and comparing it to the other users that is utilizing that particular tool. So in that very way, you can easily discover lazy work essentially, or actually find out if the team is actually working. Thirdly, I would like to highly recommend that you set clear KPIs. By looking at exactly what is important to us with regards to the policies that we have, we can then communicate this to our team and have those open conversations thereafter about how they're adhering to these KPIs that you set. So, the more clarity around the KPIs, the less confusion and the more willingness our users are to adhere to these appropriate standards. Fourthly, I'd like to mention that we should monitor our team consistently. We all have top performers, we all have those outliers. And it's not always the case where we can give that feedback to our team. It's also necessary that you pick up things as they're changing before it turns into a productivity issue. So, I definitely recommend that you monitor the team on a regular basis, where this will open up the conversations for you to give credibility to your top performers and, of course, address the challenges that you are going to be observing with these insights with your outliers. Fifthly, I'd like to suggest that you integrate with project management tools. So, this is especially if you're working against deadlines, if you've got particular projects in play. By utilizing the integration feature that Time Doctor has, which is with over 60 plus applications, this will allow you to be able to get the insight of how the team is utilizing these tools, how they are keeping their nose clean with regards to the deadlines they have to meet, and as well as even taking it as far as seeing if the team is actually utilizing that particular tool. We can then flip that around to a cost reduction conversation by monitoring exactly how the team is adhering to this. And this all can be found with the integrations of Time Doctor. So, this can simply be observed in the projects and task report when the user inputs exactly what activity they were actioning. Last but not least is a major one. And this is where we recommend that you host regular check ins with your team. We all love to have conversations with our manager to inform them about what's working, what's not working, to get credibility when we're doing well, or alternatively, to get assistance when we're not doing so well. So, from a manager's perspective, if you host these regular check ins, you'll be well aware of what the user's working on, how exactly are they addressing those challenges that they are experiencing, or alternatively, you could give them the credibility if they exceeding expectations. So, definitely host regular check-ins so that we are always aware of exactly what is going on. So these were a few best practices that I wanted to mention. Next, we have our Q&A session. So within this particular webinar that we've hosted, if you have any remaining questions, please do reach out to us. We'd love to assist you with any of the topics that we've covered today, and of course, any of the features with Time Doctor. Now let's jump in with the wrap up with Calvin.
Fantastic, Prashina. Thank you so much. Just to cover some key highlights from the webinar, real quick, just to round it up. We spoke about, obviously, we're speaking about how you can check how to know if your team is really working. We spoke about the hours track report. So, analyzing that, looking at it, ensuring that your team are either making sure they're not working too many hours and also ensuring that they're not working too little hours and that everything is being adhered to. Coupled with that, we spoke about attendance report, attendance registers, if you're using shifts. So, again, making sure that the shifts are being respected and that your employees are working the correct stipulated shifts, as well as working the correct amount of hours, starting when they're supposed to, ending when they're supposed to. If you're tracking breaks, taking breaks when they're supposed to by using the attendance register. Then I again came back and spoke about productivity and using the activity summary, how you can manage your productivity by looking at a few things, using screencasts and the like to make sure that your users are not pretending to work and they're actually being active and being productive, coupled with the unusual activity report, where we went in and we just looked in brief at what it looks like and the type of data that you can see. I'd like to also let you know that the unusual activity report is only available on our premium plan. It can be available on any other plans as add-ons, but you can contact your customer success manager if you have one, and if you don't, you can just reach out to our support team. We'll provide those details for you at the end. And then lastly, Prashina gave us some key practices and other things that you can do to, again, accompany everything we've spoken about today, just so you can understand how your team are working and ensure that they are really working and being productive and being efficient and effective, so thereby you can have company growth. So those are just the key highlights. Hope it was helpful. Yeah, back to Prashina, who's going to wrap us up.
Thank you very much, Calvin. So, unfortunately, we've come to the end of today's session. Once again, I'd like to remind you that you have data available at your fingertips. And as Calvin has just reiterated, by utilizing this data, you can then make those executive decisions to be able to view exactly if your team is working or not. We hope you enjoyed the session today as much as we did being your hosts. Thank you very much for your time. If you need any assistance or you have any questions that's remaining, please, if you have a CSM, reach out to your CSM. Alternatively, reach out to our support team and we will gladly assist you. Thank you very much for your time today once again. Have a great day and we're looking forward to seeing you in our next one. Bye for now. Take care.